Hey everybody, before getting into the action, here's a quick word from the sponsor of this video. Today's video is sponsored by DraftBuff. Most of you probably know who they are at this point, but in case you don't, they're a free-to-use fantasy esports platform on mobile and online with over 150,000 users. They cover a variety of games, including Overwatch, Call of Duty, and League of Legends, but recently, they've been working on some new additions like Rocket League and Valorant if you're into any of that stuff. DraftBuff has three core game modes. There's the traditional fantasy mode where you draft and build a team, Draft Royales where you formulate a different team every single week under a specific budget, and Brackets, which is essentially pick'ems leagues. But that's not what I'm here to talk about. DraftBuff recently added a brand new in-game feature called buffs. They're essentially a high-risk, high-reward power-up that you can attach to a player, which can increase how many points they earn if certain conditions are met. However, the risk factor plays a part in this if said in-game conditions are not met, as you're going to earn even less points than you would have if you didn't give that player a buff at all. There's a lot of interesting power-ups to choose from. For example, you could equip King of the Jungle to the player who you think will earn the most points that week. If you're correct, they earn an additional 25 points. If you're wrong, you lose 10 points instead. I decided to stick that on Violet this week because he tends to do very well in fantasy. Or maybe you'll go for the Lucky Clover, which provides a 150% boost to the number of points a player earns if they average a certain amount of deaths per map. In this case, for Overwatch, it would be 7 deaths, but at the same time, if this condition is not met, that player will only earn 75% of the points they could have earned that week. There's so many buffs to experiment with. Consider trying them out today to add a special twist to your league. And if you've never used DraftBuff before, consider checking out their website or downloading the app today through the link in the description. Big thanks to DraftBuff for sponsoring this video, and now on to today's content. Can you believe the Overwatch League regular season is already halfway over? Time really has flew by, but I suppose that shouldn't come as much of a surprise. The results this far have largely been different from what many of us were expecting during the preseason. As per tradition here on the channel, the halfway mark serves as a time of reflection. Let's talk about the award race. Now that we have substantial gameplay and results to analyze, we can discuss who the frontrunners are. We'll talk about the standard awards that the league gives out, plus some of my own custom ones that you'll remember if you've been following my channel for quite some time. The plan is to talk about my personal frontrunners for these awards and make predictions as to who I think the league will pick at the end of the year for the ones they provide. Feel free to play along in the comments as we kick off the video with the MVP discussion. So maybe it's just me when I say this, but it feels like there's one guy in particular who is out in front, and that has to be Fearless, right? The impact of Fearless has been otherworldly. In my opinion, it's the most value we have seen out of a main tank player since Fissure back in Season 1. Fearless has dominated right from the get-go. Now to be fair, it's mostly been on Winston, and maybe some of you will say someone who has played more heroes deserves it over him, but here's how I see it. Winston has been fairly strong since the start of the year. For the most part, he's been a fairly viable pick, and it's not like he hasn't been solid on Reinhardt either. He's made some big plays on him too, but what really makes Fearless stand out is his ability to find value on that Winston to the point where him and his team can basically force the meta. In the June Joust, Dallas said screw it, let's go rush, but with Winston. Let's invest in Fearless so much that it forces the opponent to pick their poison. You want to try and counter Fearless? Well, good luck with that, because now you're freeing up Sparkle and Doha to roll all over you. Unless you're one of a few select teams, odds are you're kind of screwed if you're playing Dallas. Fearless has taken his game to the next level. He's had his fingerprints written all over every single meaningful game, and the stats back it up too. Second highest damage per 10, highest elimination rate, and a bottom 5 death rate on Winston. And if you're of the belief he's only been that good on Winston, I advise you to think again. Take every player in the league with at least 45 minutes on Rhine, and boom, he's top of the league in elims and final blows, second in hero damage, and he has the second lowest death rate. And here's how he stacks up when combining his stats across multiple main tank heroes. He's just a complete and utter monster. Unlike at other positions where it's maybe a little hard to guess, there is no doubt that Fearless is currently the best main tank in the Overwatch League. Because he is so easily distinguishable from the rest of the pack, it's hard to not put him in the conversation for the MVP. So that's who I personally have leading the pack, and he is also the person I foresee the league choosing by the time the year ends. It makes way too much sense. He's performed at an elite level. He's been performing well on a team that had quote-unquote disadvantages at hitscan, and he makes for an excellent storyline. The guy who once played for the 0-40 Dragons, then had to grind his way back into the league, is now eligible to win the MVP award. It's something that fans, GMs, coaches, and broadcast talent alike will come to appreciate. He's valuable in terms of his impact in the game and for the league as a whole. But what about some honorable mentions who also have a good shot? Well, while we're on the subject of Dallas, we surely have to bring up Sparkle and Fielder, right? Those two have been incredibly impactful as well. Sparkle for showcasing explosive playmaking abilities on multiple heroes, and Fielder for being a clear-cut top support player. Honestly, Fielder might be my number 2 choice as he's been putting up similar numbers to that of Fearless on his role. Ever since he became the full-time starter at Flex Support, he's gone on a tear. He's clearly the best Moira, he's easily top 2 or 3 on Baptiste, and his Ana has been very solid. There's not much to dislike about the way Fielder has been performing this year. The guy on normal ping is something else. Definitely wouldn't be mad at all if he got the MVP nod over Fearless. Okay, but what about a non-Dallas player? In that case, how about Lip? He's built upon his rookie year and then some. He was already really good last year, but this year has seen him become more of an all-around carry rather than the guy who just seems to play Sombra, Ashe, or the occasional McCree. So many people called this guy a Sombra one-trick last year, and he's been showing exactly why this is not true. He's played the characters I just mentioned efficiently, but he's put in the work on Tracer, Reaper, and Widowmaker as well, and he's done so by showing up in every single big game imaginable, essentially. He's top 2 in damage, and top 5 in eliminations per 10 for a reason. Like Fearless over in Dallas, Lip has been Shanghai's rock, even outshining the likes of former MVP Fleta. An MVP award would be well-deserved for Lip. That's enough about the MVP award, though. Let's talk Rookie of the Year, where things get kind of interesting. Despite Mag being my preseason pick for this award, I don't really see him as the clear-cut pack leader right now. The guy I currently have out in front is actually Shy. Remember how I said Lip is second in damage per 10? Well, that's because of Shy. Literally, since the moment the Spark decided to start him, he has been balling. Their record and general competitive nature have improved drastically as well. From week 3 until now, I would say, the Spark have won 5 games and lost 2 if you count the knockout match against New York. And that Shanghai loss went the distance as well. He's been a major difference maker for the Spark, and the stats back it up. Whether it be Ashe, McCree, or Echo, he trends towards the top of the leaderboards. Shy has been unreal. He's already trending towards superstar status after only like 8 games in the league. If the Spark continue to play this well, then forget about Rookie of the Year. We might have to start sneaking him into the MVP conversation. Shy has blown me away. The Spark are a completely different team with him out on the field, and that level of impact is difficult to match. I will say though, he's not the leader by all that much because there definitely are a few guys right behind him. One of course is Mag. He might not be my number 1 choice, but he's pretty darn close. Historically, rookie main tanks have been very hit or miss in this league. Some are really good, and others crumble under the pressure. Mag fortunately has fallen into the first category. He has been terrifyingly consistent on both Winston and Reinhardt. His Winston in particular though, that has been close to the likes of Fearless and Smurf, and that is some elite company you're joining. A legitimate argument can be made he has been more impactful than Shy, and if you think that, I won't even hold it against you. But for me, what it comes down to is Shy's team playing significantly better once he became a starter. Sure, coaching also has to do with their transformation, but Shy's level of play has been undeniably great. It's just a preference, but I personally think that Shy has meant more to his team so far. One other honorable mention before we move on, I think, is Pelican. His play on Echo has been top tier this year. Again, this might just be a preference thing, but to me, he was quite easily the strongest Echo in the June Joust, and that level of play at times has translated onto Mei and Reaper, although he's played quite a bit more Echo than anything else. This Reign team are lost without him and Kai leading the way. Plain and simple. Godlike performances out of Pelican as of late, and easily one of the top Rookie of the Year candidates. As for who I think the league will pick, I'm going with Mag. I feel they've been hyping up Pelican and Shy quite a bit as of late, but when it comes down to it, Mag's team has the highest chance to stay consistently good. They are the ones that are built for long-term success, which means that Mag will likely have more chances to show he is the best. Plus, as mentioned previously, his stats are pretty comparable to some of the best main tanks in the league, which is going to make the league and fans alike gravitate towards him. Now on to Coach of the Year. I would reckon it's not much of a contest. The leader for Coach of the Year has to be Rush. A first and second place finish in the 2 tournaments that have been played so far is wild. And some of the teams they have beaten to achieve this level of success is unreal. 2 big wins over Houston, a stomp against the Shock, a win against the Gladiators, and wins over multiple really good APAC teams, including the best one, that being the Dragons. That is no small feat. but it's the way in which they have attained their success and competitive nature that puts Rush over the top. They completely went against what you consider to be the traditional comps a lot of the time. With no dedicated sniper or true hit scan, they have managed to beat some absurdly good rosters. They basically created a strength out of one of their biggest arguable weaknesses. Instead of trying to compete with something they know they can't, the Fuel consistently embrace their own style. The Fuel have played with incredible confidence. Their coordination and extremely quick pace of play has been a nightmare to deal with. Even in their losses, their opponents have to earn it. They have forced others into playing their own game, and as the Dragon showed us, you can't really win that way. His players are extremely talented, but Rush deserves a crazy amount of credit for coming up with creative ways to compensate for his team's weaknesses. He is my personal front runner. There's a few other guys you could probably argue for, like Moon or maybe Junkbuck, but the results and challenges they have overcome don't quite compare to Rush in my opinion. With that said, Rush is absolutely the guy I see the league picking for Coach of the Year as well. The second half of the season could very well change that, but as of right now, it feels pretty set in stone. Let's talk about the final award now that the league gives out. Well, in this case, awards, because we're discussing role stars. Just a warning, this will end up taking a fair chunk of the video to get through since there are multiple players to discuss on each role. Let's start with who I would personally choose. At tank, one should be pretty obvious. Fearless has to be in there for a second year in a row. He deserves it even more so this year, if anything, because he has been a monster. If he's my MVP, it would only make sense if he's a role star as well. Also making the cut at tank will be his partner in crime. Hanbin deserves to make the cut too. He's done a little bit of everything this year. He's primarily played D.Va, but it's the way in which he played this character that gives him the edge over many off-tanks. In the per 10 category, he's top 2 or better in each damage category and is only averaging an absurd 3.7 deaths per 10 with over 12 hours of playtime on D.Va. He is doing exactly what Void did in Season 3, so I just had to include him. Another tank making the list is Piggy. Maybe this one is a bit controversial. Houston have yet to make a tournament, but in my opinion, he is largely responsible for their strong start. He has consistently been solid on D.Va, Zarya, and Sigma, and I would argue he's been top 5 or at least around that level on all of them. And to top it all off, he has found success with 2 different main tank partners. If the season ended today, I would be more than happy to give him a role star. And last but not least on the tank list, I have Void. The same absurd stats from last year are still in effect with a league low 3.5 deaths per 10 on D.Va and Sigma combined. There's only 2 tanks who are consistently ahead of him statistically if we're including both main and off. Guess who they are? Just guess. It's none other than Hanbin and Fearless. Void is genuinely still a top 5 tank player, period. Apply every praise I had for him last year to this video essentially. He deserves it yet again. Now we're on to support, where we start with yet another obvious one. Fielder is practically a lock-in at this point. Nobody's been as strong at the support position. I'm sorry, but absolutely no one. Ever since the May Melee knockouts, he has been on a mission. He's rocking a top 3 or better healing rate on BAP, Moira, and Ana, not to mention that he has played in a very efficient manner while showcasing more disciplined positioning compared to last year. In my opinion, he is the best flex support in the game currently, so it would be foolish to not have him be a role star. Next up is yet another Shanghai player. That's right, I'm talking about Izayaki. Much like Fielder, he has stepped up his game. Izayaki has continued to improve and impress. Unlike last year where he maybe felt a little overrated thanks to the team he was playing on, he seriously feels like a top tier support this year. Statistically, he does not stand out in the same way as other players do like Fielder, but man oh man does this guy make up for it when you watch him play. Absolute unit of a player this year who has seriously helped Shanghai level up. While I'm on the topic of Shanghai, I have Lee J gone as a role star too. Nothing has changed compared to last year, and I mean that in the best possible way. He's made a case for best main support in the league. Whether he's on Lucio, Mercy, or Brigitte, he has consistently been getting the job done. And the thing is, a lot of his best competition from last year has dropped off for various reasons. Sure, a few other guys have risen up through the ranks, but I don't think anybody else really compares at the main support position currently, so he's gotta occupy a spot for sure. Now though, the 4th and final spot is where things get a little tricky. There's a lot of guys I want to choose, but only one can make the cut sadly. This may even come as a hot take for some, but I actually have Iris as my 4th and final role star right now. I don't necessarily think of him as a top 4 player at his role. In fact, there's a handful of people I would much rather have on my team. But the fact of the matter is that Iris's impact has been a lot higher than some of those players. We always talk about Kai and Pelican when it comes to the best players on the Reign, but Iris deserves a lot of praise too. He's truly come into his own, as shown by the major steps he has taken in his development. Last year, he kind of felt like a non-factor at times, somebody who was still trying to find his way. Now he's basically putting on a show every single week. The healing and playmaking have been fantastic. He feels like a true carry at flex support, and he's top tier in a lot of that stuff statistically that I like to look at. His positioning and IQ have been a major standout. He seems to be in the right place at the right time a lot these days. It's very impressive. His deaths per 10 on all flex support heroes combined is an astonishing 4.4, which is tied for 4th lowest in the league. I low-key do not think the Reign get as far as they do without him. He's such an underrated part of that team, and I want to give him the recognition he truly deserves. Now it is time for the DPS. This position is kind of weird because last year the league listed 5 of them, so assuming that happens again, I'm going to pick 5. At this point, a pattern is starting to be established, so I think you know where I'm starting. Both Sparkle and Lip are clear-cut role stars in my eyes. Sparkle and Lip are 2 of the 7 players in this league to average 10k plus damage per 10. Lip has been masterful on hit scan, and Sparkle has shown off insane flexibility, and each of them, to top it all off, have showcased clutch moment after clutch moment in these tournaments. And considering that I both have them in the MVP race, it would make a lot of sense to have them be in the role star discussion too. But who shall be joining them? Well, I'm going to start with Decay as my third person. He's been a solid performer week in and week out. Whether it be Tracer, McCree, or Reaper, the man farms. Take some advanced statistics to further show his insane level of play. First off, he's in the top 25 on the total final blows list, despite playing significantly less minutes than a majority of the players ahead of him. There's also the fact that he has the best final blow to death ratio in the league, and it's not particularly close. 2.5 puts him way ahead of his colleagues. In fact, he's the only guy in the 2 range at all. Next level productivity from a guy who arguably got robbed of a Role Star award back in Season 3. At number 4, I am going with Shy. I'm kind of obsessed with this incredible rookie. He's been far too life-changing for the Spark to snuff him out. He just keeps on putting in the finest of work. He's completely changed the dynamic of the Hangzhou Spark. His ability to get picks and take over a game at any given moment has transformed the Spark from a joke into a respectable team. He has quickly become an elite star at the Overwatch League level. The number of times he has ran over the competition already in like 8 games is undeniable. I kind of discussed why I like him so much during my Rookie of the Year case, so I'll leave it there. You get the point. I'm a big fan. He's undoubtedly one of the best damage dealers in the league. And at number 5, I'm going with Leave. For me personally, he's been a top-tier flex DPS. My argument for him being at the top is his ability to be strong on multiple characters who have played a pivotal role in the metas. In both stages, his Echo was very clean as he posted some of the better numbers in the league on her. During the May Melee specifically, he ran rampant on the Tracer, and he's also shown great flexibility on situational characters like Ashe, Hanzo, and Widowmaker. He has shown that when his team is in contention and he has a chance to show what he's got, he comes to play. The clutch efforts and the consistency is what ultimately does it for me. Much like my Shy pick, this one is highly up for debate, but I truly do believe he's been one of the most impactful DPS players in the league these last couple of months. Even when Chengdu struggled, he still kind of put in the work, which is definitely a step up compared to last year. So those are my personal role stars at the halfway mark, but do I think the league is going to pick some different people by the end of the year? Yeah, I definitely do. On tank, I do believe they will pick Fearless, Hanbin, and Void, but deep down, instead of Piggy, I see them picking Fate. It's a gut feeling because the Dragons will likely continue to be successful, and if Fate plays how he did in the June Joust, the league won't be able to resist. Between being strong statistically and the storyline that comes with him returning to top form, they'll have a hard time choosing anybody else. At support, I see a few differences. Instead of Iris, they pick Jexay. I feel the league has been focusing on him a lot. They've been highlighting him as underrated and underappreciated. And again, with other main supports from years past not being around or maybe not being as effective or successful as Jexay, it opens up the door for him. But that is not the only change I see. This one doesn't have much weight to it, but for some reason, I see the league picking Shu instead of Izayaki. Shu has been really strong statistically, the Glads are starting to play a bit better around him, and I think that the IBM Watson system really seems to love him. And I mean, to be fair, he's been kind of underrated, especially on the Baptiste. That's all for support. On to damage. I definitely see some differences beyond Sparkle, Lip, and Decay. For one, the league likely picks Doha. I avoided him just to not have too many players from the same team, and because I do think he's been slightly less effective than Sparkle, but the league will see it differently. It's the exact same situation as Shu, really. Doha has been very strong statistically, and those are the guys who usually have the best chances of winning. But unlike Shu, Doha has a lot of clutch performances on his resume, which is why I believe the league will pick him. The fifth and final guy of the league choosing for their DPS role stars when it's all said and done is Prophet. Why Prophet exactly? I have no idea. This one's just a big-time gut feeling. Prophet has quietly been very good this year, and deep down, I get this feeling that the Dynasty will continue to post consistent results. Maybe they even sneak into a tournament, and if Prophet gets into one of these tournaments, he is going to solidify his amazing season because of how clutch he is in these types of settings. Prophet has been a superstar since the league's beginning. The league loves him to death. If he just makes a bit more of a push and his team maybe performs a bit better in the standings, it's only a matter of time before he achieves one of the only honors not in his trophy case. Alrighty, we're finally through the traditional awards that the league hands out. Now we'll talk about a few awards that I personally like to hand out here on my channel. The first of which is the Most Improved Player, or some people like to call it Comeback Player of the Year. This very well might be recency bias speaking, but right now I'm kind of leaning towards Fate. Fate has never been a terrible player in my eyes. In fact, he was very reliable in Florida during Season 3, but the way he's performing this year has gone way beyond what you consider reliable. If he was an A-tier main tank last year, he is surely heading towards that S-tier trajectory right now. The consistency has certainly been there on characters like Orisa, Winston, and even Wrecking Ball, but the thing that really pushes him over the edge is what he pulled off in the June Joust and how he performed generally speaking in a clutch setting. He played out of his mind, and as shown, when his teammates play around him and take advantage of the plays he sets up, they can literally defeat anybody. To go head-to-head with Fearless and hold your own is no laughing matter. Going from good to great is also something that I can appreciate and consider improvement at the end of the day. It's the best he's looked in years, too. I'll give him Most Improved since he went from solid to a potential championship piece. A few honorable mentions who I am also considering are OG from going from just okay to reasonably solid, Lee for realizing his true potential as a playmaker at the Overwatch League level, and Iris since he showed immense improvement in a very short amount of time. Next, while we're on the topic of Most Improved, is Most Improved Team, which have quite a few choices really. You might consider Chengdu since they have become far more consistent compared to their Season 3 iteration. The Justice and the Outlaws are also two very reasonable choices considering how far they have climbed up in the standings compared to last year. But I am going with the Fuel as my Most Improved Team. Sure, they might not have climbed up as many places as like the Outlaws, let's say, but a first place finish and a second place finish beats out any achievement of last year's Dallas team by far. And I mean, technically speaking, they climbed up pretty far in the standings themselves. From 13th to second place, I mean, that's what you call quality improvement. Another award I enjoy handing out here on my channel is the Most Surprising Player. Keep in mind, it could be surprising for a good reason or a bad one. This time around, I'm going with something positive. My frontrunner is Piggy for a good reason. Words can't even describe how far he has gone beyond my expectations. I literally saw him as nothing more than a Zarya player heading into Season 4. That's what he was known for on Talon, and that's the only place I expected him to thrive at this level. But instead, he's been an all-around monster. Zarya might not even be his strongest hero right now. That's how well-rounded of an off-tank he's been. He's near the top on Sigma, D.Va, and Zarya statistically. Sigma and Zarya in particular see him leading the league in damage. He's genuinely been a very respectable player, and as mentioned earlier, his performance levels have seen no drastic changes even when playing with Dreamer instead of his longtime partner Jonggu. Absolute unit of a player who truly came out of nowhere for someone like me. And finally, the last award that we will be talking about in this video is the Most Surprising Team Frontrunner. A team like Dallas, for example, is really surprising due to their overwhelming success, and the Shock have surprised due to how unclutch they've been in tournaments. But the thing is, I had high hopes for both of them. The Shock losing is weird, but they're still reasonably good record-wise. Dallas have won more than I thought, but still, I assumed they'd be a good team this year. No, we gotta go beyond. I'm sticking with the theme of really positive surprises, just these out-of-nowhere teams and players, if you will. My most surprising team right now is the Houston Outlaws. Listen, like the idiot I am, I placed them 17th, yes, 17th in my power rankings. Look at them now. Tank and support? No problem at all. Not to mention that they've got a 7-1 record in these qualifiers with a plus 13 map differential. That is quite the insane difference compared to my preseason expectations. They're one of the top 8 or so teams in the league, and it's difficult to see that changing anytime soon. Unless Houston have a collapse of epic proportions, they are on track to win this award. And on that note, We are done, ladies and gentlemen. That is all I have for you in this video. If you enjoyed this mid-season reflection, it would mean a lot to me if you could drop a like and sub if you want to stay up to date with all of my discussion videos. And once again, feel free to play along down in the comments so we can keep the discussion going. And as always, thank you all for watching my content. I appreciate you so much. And until next time, this is ATP, signing out. Peace.